Your lesson today is going to talk about what a percent is. Your objective today, I will demonstrate my mathematical ability to convert between a fraction, decimal, and percent through individual and class practice. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first part of our discussion today is going to talk about what is a percent. And the first bullet, I'm going to tell you what goes in those blanks, but I'm not going to write it because I want people to really start paying attention to the video. And there's going to be some things I'm going to write on the screen, and there's going to be some things I don't. So the first thing we're going to talk about, okay, is what a percent means. A percent means per 100. So something per 100. 100%, you got 100% of the problems correct. So you got 100 out of 100. 90%, you got 90 problems right out of 100. If I was to give you a 100 question test, a 90% would simply mean you would have gotten 90 correct. Okay. Now, the P or percent is the same as P over 100. Okay, we can make that into a fraction. That if I want to know what the percent is, I can put over 100, and that's how I'm going to make it a fraction. We can shortcut it and just use the percent symbol as the shortcut. Now, there are three ways I can write a number. The first way, as we're going to be talking about today, is as a percent. Okay, the second way is as a fraction. And then from a fraction, we can do it as a decimal. Okay, so this question says, what are some equivalent representations of 30 over 100? Okay, well, remember we talked about the three ways we can write a number. Well, one is a fraction. Well, that's already a fraction. I could reduce that fraction as to 3/10. Okay, I can make an equivalent fraction. I can go 15 over 50. Okay, now I can also make it a percent. Well, since it's already over 100, that's pretty easy. I'm just going to take my numerator, so that's 30%. Okay, now I want it as a decimal. Well, the 30 over 100 or the 3 over 10, we could do it either way. It's simply going to be 0.3. Okay, or 0.30. Okay, really that 0 doesn't really mean a whole, it's there as a placeholder, but if I read this decimal, it's as 0.3. Okay, these are some just different representations, some different ways I can represent this. I can do it as a fraction. Okay, I can do it as a percent. And then finally I can do it as a decimal. Alright, so some of your questions on your assignment are going to ask you to write some different representations of a number. Remember, it can be a fraction, a percent, or a decimal. Alright, let's see what the next slide is all about. Okay, so this chart, here again, we're still talking about what is a percent. Okay, remember the three ways you can write a number: percent, fraction, and decimal. Alright, well, a couple things we can do. Alright, I want to go to a fraction. Well, remember I said in the definition what a percent is simply P over 100. I can make my fraction. So if I know my percent, I can simply make it as 37.5 over 100. Okay. Well, then if I make my decimal, okay, it's simply going to be 0.375. Okay, because if I have my decimal to go to if I have my percent rather, I'm going to go to my decimal. I'm going to have to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. No, to the left. Okay. So now that we know that, now that should be pretty easy. Well, if I have 130 over 100, that's going to be 130%. Okay. Well, that as a decimal, 2 places to the right would be 1.3. Okay. Now I have the decimals 1.0. Well, that's a whole, right? So if I make that a decimal, it would simply be 100 over 100. Or the way it's written right there would be 10 over 10. It's all the same thing. And then that would be 100%. because 100% represents a whole, okay, per 100. Now, I have a half of a percent. Well, I can just make that a complex fraction, 1/2 over 100. Okay. Well, that is a decimal. Okay. If I write it as a decimal like I did this top one, I could 1/2 as 0.5 over 100. Okay. And so that would make it 0.005. 350%, same thing as this one up here. Okay, I'm going to put 350 over 100. That's pretty easy. Okay, at this point, I'm not as concerned with it being a reduced fraction as much as you can write the fraction out of it. Okay, if I wanted to reduce this, however, I know I can reduce it at least by 100 because I have 0, so I could cross those zeros out. Okay, then I have 35 over 10. Well, if I reduce 35 over 10, I can reduce this by 5, and I'd have 7 over 2. Okay? And so then I would write my, my decimal, and that'd be 3.5. Okay? So, as a fraction, at this point in this exercise, I don't care if you leave it like this, or you can take it to the simplified version. If you are just in the habit that you're going to take everything to a simplified version, then great, then do that. Okay, so some things are going to change a little bit in how we do how we're going to do things. Now, you still have to write your summary on your Cornell notes. Okay, that still has to happen. However, your question, we're going to put it on a discussion board, and you'll see the discussion board attached to this assignment. Okay, I want you to write your discussion board question on there, and then once you submit it, you're going to see all the other questions that other students have in class. Now, if you have more than one question, write that question there. All right, now I've also attached 5 questions that you need to answer prior to coming to class. This is for a grade, and it was attached to this video. Okay, and it's coming up at the very end. So you need to make sure you do that and make sure it gets done. All right, and I will see you in class.